Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. It's May 16th. It's Ben Buckner with Ag Resource Company in Chicago and Dan, who is still in Geneva, Switzerland. We got markets that are generally flat. Corn is up 2, wheat is unchanged, soybeans are down fractionally, but it's soy oil that's still shedding, I think, government risk premium based on the sort of flood of rumors about the changes in the renewable fuels standard 2026 to 2028. And we all know it's weather, it's government policy that drives prices, and government policy is a pretty close second. So I think the addition of soybean oil premium based on expectations for like a 2.5 billion gallon increase in the RVO in 2026 made good sense. But now it's kind of back to basics. So we're looking at things, like heating oil, which is the best proxy for renewable diesel margins, motor gasoline use in the U.S., which has been pretty stagnant. So the soy oil market all of a sudden has to kind of work to boost renewable diesel and biodiesel margins. So that explains fully what's happening. And the market is down soybean oil in pretty decent volume today. Also, the central U.S. forecast has an abundance of rain almost everywhere except for the hard red belt. So that's kind of capping challenging rallies in row crops. But there are still a lot of hot spots, and I think still a lot of risk. It's been an exciting week. I think we're just jumping into the real volatility that we're going to see through the rest of summer. Dan, what do you think this morning?
Well, I think that's right, Ben. We started the week out with the Chinese-U.S. trade thaw, if you will, and I think that's been important. We shouldn't forget about that. That is still in the background, and that is a game changer. But without that, we're still lacking demand drivers, and so we're still kind of looking at, where we thought here. And biofuel policy, as you mentioned, has been very uncertain. Yesterday you had EPA Commissioner Zedlin really indicating that there's 161 small refinery exemptions pending. So if there's that many, and of course this wasn't done from the Biden administration, this has been carried over to the EPA and Zeldin's watch right now. And so even though the RVOs may be cut, if you will, and I think that's the rumor is having about 4.65 billion gallons. It's still a record, but not as the industry wanted. But now that you have all these what I call renewable fuel exemptions, it really pressures RIN prices, which fell yesterday. It clouds the outlook. So we're not going to be any smarter on all this for another 3 to 5 weeks. But in saying that, the soybean oil market's going to struggle to rally, especially with the 30% reduction in tariffs in terms of China. So UCO is again going to be flowing into the United States because the tariff isn't at 145, it's at 30. And I think that's key going forward. The other thing, of course, that's important, I believe, this morning is to talk a little bit about China. We've been highlighting on this call how dry it's been across the Chinese wheat areas, which are highlighted. This is percent of normal rainfall looking back over the past 30 days. Yeah, there's been some rain in the far southern areas, but if you look at the fat areas of central and northern Hunan and some of the other Jialing provinces, you see here that it's been very, very dry. And this dryness really extends back for 60 days. So it's not something that crept up on us. In saying that, it's also going to be very, very hot. These are expected temperatures in the next 10 days, the highest high, if you will. So we're going to see heat coming back, in particular to Henan. We're going to see temperatures as high as 105 to 108 degrees. This is not good for reproducing wheat. China normally starts harvesting wheat about the second week of June. Let's call it June 10th. So the next 3 or 4 weeks are absolutely critical. And this heat, whether they irrigate or not, is unwanted. This is not going to be friendly to China's wheat crop. Whether or not China admits it has a problem, I think is going to be the big question. China's data is always difficult to trust, but in saying that, we believe that China will be a more active wheat importer. We'll talk about that later. The good news is that the extended forecast does have rain for the wheat areas of China. So if you look at the southern and central areas of China, we'll still be missing some of that far north. There is some good rainfall anywhere between really 2 to 5 inches are possible across the south. As we go north, it ends up being something like 3/4 of an inch to 2.5 inches. But this rain will be helping to some degree, or at least stabilize the crop as it goes forward. So I think we need to be thinking about that. Other than that, the question becomes, well, if China's wheat crop is down, let's say we're down 10, 12 million tons, which is where our heads would be at Ag Resource today. What do we think happens in the future? Well, China has this WTO commitment to bring in about 9 million tons of wheat. So we are expecting China to be a bigger wheat importer, maybe upwards of 10 million tons. The problem I have is on corn. I don't know what to do with China on corn today because we got to get through the summer weather pattern. We got to better understand where the Chinese cash corn market is and whether the U.S. and let's say China can get together on any kind of trade deal. So let's talk about wheat being the imported commodity at 10. Let's leave corn somewhere around 8 or 10 or 12. And we'll see how this all plays out, and we'll adjust numbers as we go forward. Ben mentioned the abundance of rain, the bounty, if you will, from really the South Dakota, North Dakota border stretching down into Kentucky. I think this is all fine. Corn and bean crops are probably well planted at this point, maybe 75, 77% planted in corn, probably close to 70% in beans. So the rain will be seen as beneficial. We're now into that phase of post-planting of rain makes grain. Yeah, we still have some seed to get in the ground, but it's not going to be enough to really worry the market with the kind of planting progress we've had in the last 10 days. So this is going to be important. However, there's a risk that comes with all this moisture, which is Fusarium, head scab. This is the forecast from Penn State. So you can see the scab forecast is kind of shifted to the east and north from where it was across Arkansas and maybe a little bit in Missouri. But this abundance of rain that's coming now will probably move Fusarium back into the west. And so that's very important. So we are going to be watching very carefully for disease pressures across the abundance of the Midwest in the next couple of weeks. I think the Delta will be included in this. We don't need any more wheat rain on some of this soft red winter wheat crop. We'll watch it very carefully. Finally, we'll finish up with what the crop tour found in Kansas. This is the Kansas State wheat update. They talk about stripe rust. It's spreading. It's still controllable a little bit with fungicides, but if temperatures hold at an average of 50 to 60 degrees, you're going to find this disease even spreading more quickly. So weather is going to be the key for the next 3 weeks in terms of stripe disease in Kansas, mosaic stripe disease. And again, yield losses can be anywhere from 10 to 80%. So this weather and the incidence of the disease will be very, very key going home. That's all I got for you today, Ben. It's going to be an interesting week. We started off with China-US thaw. We end up with a lot of wheat diseases. We'll see where this all goes, but there's plenty enough things to watch for the marketplace.
Oh, yeah. I think it's really important to be engaged. Again, like we've mentioned already, I think blank canvas kind of defines markets for the next several months to 12 months, and every category can be revised, and it's always the case, but I think more so this year. And even the wheat yield, I think is very, very uncertain because we are seeing a lot of disease and a lot of the qualifiers. Even from the wheat tour, here's the mathematical yield calculation, but this could change pretty significantly between now and harvest. So probably have seen the high in the U.S. winter wheat yield estimates. We'll see what harvest results tell us and then how the disease impacted that. So yeah, it's going to be, I think, an exciting summer, and we're just getting started. And so, we're going to be very, very busy in trying to define risk, trying to manage risk. It's going to be changeable on an hourly basis. So again, being engaged makes sense. $1 gets you in for 30 days. Stay tuned to everything that we're doing. We're going to be kind of defining more and more what happens with scenarios for new crop supply and demand, because I think that's what you got to do. You got to entertain various yields, U.S. Northern Hemisphere demand scenarios, because of this lingering improvement in U.S.-Chinese relationship. So yeah, volatility, that's what we're dealing with. So Dan, any final comments before we head off into the weekend?
No, everybody should have a good weekend. There's plenty to talk about. Remember that U.S. wheat sales in new crop position are the third largest on record, second largest in a decade. Corn and wheat beans, also strong sales and exports. So we do have some demand behind these markets. We just need to solidify it longer term. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll be back on Monday and talk about what's going to happen in the week ahead. Be well.
Yeah, all the best. Bye-bye.